Welcome to FreedomCast, a podcast dedicated to interviewing star icons and entrepreneurs who have encouraged others to become more healthy and active. My name is Ashton, and it's my pleasure to host you as we take another trip through the fitness industry. It's entertaining and informative, and I hope it makes fitness more exciting and special to you in your own fitness journey. FreedomCast is supported by Freedom Fitness Equipment in Charlotte, North Carolina. Freedom Fitness Equipment serves the health and fitness community nationwide, from free weights and strength equipment for home gyms and studios to cardio and conditioning equipment for commercial spaces. Check them out at freedomfitnessequipment.com. Let's get rolling with today's show. Gentlemen, welcome Jimmy Kolb, Singleply bench master. I think your record right now, I'm looking at your profile, is 1,120 pounds. Is that correct?
That is correct. And it was actually using pounds. So it's not like I had to do kilos and then round up to the nearest kilo or anything. We competed in the IPA meet at York Barbell in York, Pennsylvania, and used pounds because we're American. And so yes, 1120 in single ply equipment is my current best bench.
That's freaking insane. 7 all-time world records, sponsored by multiple companies, and just fantastic. So welcome to the podcast. And I would love to know how you bench. Like, most people think, a 300-pound bench or a 400-pound bench is impressive, and you're blowing out most people's squat PRs. So, and I know it's with single ply, but how in the world do you bench over 1,000 pounds at all?
I think it's about adaptation. So when I was myself a 300-pound bench presser, when I was, I think 15, I started lifting at 14. It took me a year. I think I hit 300 or 320 or something like that at 15 years old. I can't remember exactly.
Wow.
That felt like a Mack truck to me. That felt like it was a literal ton. And the same thing went for when I benched 400, when I benched 5, 6, 7, 8. 1120, relatively speaking, feels the same kind of heaviness to what 300 pounds used to feel. It's about adapting your body, your central nervous system. And it's taken me 17 years. When I touched my first weight at 14, I think I benched like 120 pounds. So it's taken 120. That's an ironic number. So it's taken me 17 years to add 1,000 pounds to my bench. So it's not been an easy process at all.
Sure. And I know very little about single ply, multi-ply lifting. So for the folks like myself who don't know what that involves, what is that, and in what ways does that assist you with getting those kinds of totals?
Yep. So single ply, multiply, that refers to the kind of equipment. So I'm an equipped lifter. Raw is t-shirt, maybe wraps. That's what people know the most of. That's what's very known. Now single ply, multiply equipment's been around since the late 80s. So it's not a recent thing. It's been a part of the sport for over 40 years, I'm pretty sure. So equipment, the shirt that I wear is made of polyester.
Okay.
It's a fabric shirt, tight, polyester, and it's one single layer, just like your t-shirt is one single layer of cotton or whatever it is. That's what I wear, is one single layer of polyester.
Okay.
Now there's other shirts out there like made of denim, like your jeans made of denim. They're not quite as popular anymore. You don't really see them. Now, multiply is referred to as that one layer of polyester, but add layers on top of that. You could have a double ply, you could have triple ply. There's shirts that go above that.
Wow.
So right now, single ply is considered to be the most basic of supportive equipment on the market. It's the least supportive. It's the most basic equipment out there right now.
Okay. Gotcha. And how does the polyester vary from why have people moved away from that canvas or corduroy material? Is it just more advantageous to use the polyester?
So back in when the equipment first came out, obviously everything progresses. Look at what the football players wore back in the 20s.
Yeah.
They wore leather helmets with like wool in them, and now look at what they wear. Everything progresses. So back in the day when polyester first came out, it worked, but it also, it wasn't that good. And then down the road, when people started getting more creative, they found out they can make these shirts out of denim. Very rarely you've got cases where they make them out of canvas. I've never seen one personally, a bench shirt made out of canvas. So they have squat suits made out of canvas, but there are bench shirts out there that are made of that. Now the denim was considered top of the line. The polyester had support, and it's more of a stretchy material as compared to denim that doesn't stretch at all.
Yeah.
But the denim is what all the big guys were using in their late 90s, early 2000s to bench the biggest numbers, because it had that brute support. Because the material doesn't stretch, it contorts.
Yep.
And that it gets a lot of pressure on the body. But then once technology got more advanced, the material became better made, better sourced. Polyester started to eclipse the capabilities of what denim was able to do. So you've got the stopping power of denim, but with the return of polyester. So they've just basically kind of made denim obsolete.
Okay, gotcha. And is it the same kind of mechanics as like a Mark Bell slingshot, where stretching and allowing you to bring back more force on the upward movement of that bench press?
It's the same concept, but it's not applied the same way.
Okay.
Mark Bell slingshot. There's a lot of products out there that are mimicking or built the same way as a slingshot. For example, with Anderson powerlifting, with Titan equipment, I use what's called the Titan Ram.
Okay.
Same concept, but those pieces store energy through elasticity because they're made of wrap material. Wrap material has interwoven rubber, which gives it that elasticity property. So it's storing it by elasticity and then rebounding it through kinetic energy. When I'm using these polys, you can take any one of my shirts, you can't physically stretch it. It's high dense fabric.
Wow. Okay.
But it will give if you apply enough force, if you apply enough weight. But it's not springy. It's not like a rubber band. It's not like a slingshot. It's not going to throw the weight back up.
Okay.
The material does contort and move and have a little bit of return, but it's not like a rubber band at all.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. So when did you start? Have you always done Singleply, or did you start out raw and progress from there?
Yeah, I started when I was 14, and then I lifted for 4 years. I didn't know what powerlifting was at that point.
Yeah.
I had an idea of what it was. Obviously, I was doing all 3 lifts. My first 8 months, I was actually bodybuilding. That's how I originally started lifting weights. I wanted to be a bodybuilder. I was in a bookstore, long story short, picked up the Joe Weider bodybuilding encyclopedia. I was like, whoa, I want to look like that. That's cool. What dedication these guys have. It's amazing. So I started bodybuilding, gained 30 pounds. I went from 150 to 180 in my first 8 months. Newbie gains.
Yeah.
I wish I could do that now, but it's not going to happen. And then I lifted for 4 years. I progressed out of bodybuilding. I wanted to pursue strength. I thought that was more impressive in the long run. 4 years of just kind of doing everything, doing overhead presses and rows and deadlift, doing all the lifts to be overall strong. At 18, I got bad allergies right now. I apologize.
Oh, you're fine. Don't worry about it.
But anyway, so at 18, I met my first local pro level powerlifter. His name was Adam Hicks. And he introduced me to my first bench press shirt, which ironically was a denim bench press shirt. It was one of his old ones. So at 18, I started competing in equipment. And then I've done multiply, single ply. I've done denim, poly, open back, close back, grid stitch, no grid stitch, any combination you can think of. I've done it all over these last 13 years of competing.
Okay, gotcha. And what in your opinion is the best, I'm not going to ask about brand, but just style of single ply? What if somebody's wanting to be where you are and 17 years down the road and they're benching 1,000+ pounds, What style have you found to be most advantageous, or does it really depend on physique?
Every human being that's ever lived, is living, and will live is completely unique and different.
Yep.
And I personally, I got picked up by Anderson Powerlifting at the age of 19. So 1 year into competing. Yeah. I benched when I just turned 19. I achieved my first 700-pound bench press. That's when Anderson contacted me, said, "We'd love to have you. What do you want?"
Good Lord. Yeah.
And then I would I was like, well, I've got this old crappy denim. I could use a new double ply, something you've got on hand. And Ken Anderson was the guy who was still running it at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Said, well, right here next to me, I've got this double ply super katana with an open back. I think that'll fit you based on what you've told me. I was like, oh, cool. And Ken knows what he's talking about. Mm-hmm. A week later, I had this shirt. And then I think 4 months down the road after using it, I benched 740 at 19 years old. So I've used katanas. And I'm totally not, when I was younger, when I was 18, not sponsored. Mm-hmm. I branched out. I used some Inzer brand shirts. There wasn't a whole lot of companies that were making them back then. Inzer and Tight were pretty much it. He had Metal, which I never messed around with, that company from Finland.
Yeah.
So I've always used katanas. That's always what's worked for me personally with my stature, my short arms, my short stroke. And I every all-time world record I've achieved in the bench press has been with a katana of one style or another.
Oh, wow.
I've tried, I've experimented with other Titan branded shirts, some Furies F6s. I've delved into some Evil Twins when they came out, the Evil Twin line of equipment. And I've always fallen back and done very big things with Titan katanas. Like I said, I've used some Inzers before. They were okay. I see them blow out all the time, which is a big no-no.
Ooh.
So I always steer people towards considering and messing around with katanas.
Okay. And that's essentially, from what I can tell from your videos, that's you sliding on the front part of a shirt, open back, where it's just hanging off, and then benching with that. Okay.
Yeah.
And then it sounds like there are others that you would almost put on like I guess it would look like a wetsuit at that point, like it's so tight.
Yeah. My single plies are, it still resembles a shirt. It's closed neck. It's got a back. Everything's encased. Mm-hmm. When you start getting away from that, the open back shirts and stuff is okay. It starts to resemble not a shirt.
Okay.
So I'm drawn to the simplicity of the single ply closed back shirts because they still resemble a shirt. The adjustability is not quite there because it's got a closed neck and closed back. So you have to really know the thing well and have these little tricks you can do to adjust it with having the limitations of it being completely closed.
Okay.
But I'm drawn to that. I'm drawn to that simplicity and getting as much as you possibly can out of a very simple piece of equipment.
Gotcha. And I'm sorry, I think I missed it earlier. The katana is an open back or a closed back?
You can get it any way you want.
Oh, okay.
Normally, if you get something completely stock, it's going to have a closed back. Mm-hmm. When you see them with the open back with the Velcro closures, that's an alteration that you have to request either upon ordering, or if you get it down the road and go, man, I don't like that it's closed, you can send it back and say, hey, I want this cut open with Velcro. It's just an alteration. It's an option.
Okay. Gotcha.
Depending on what you prefer.
Very cool. So now I've got to ask, because I listened to the Manassas podcast, and they recently interviewed a guy who was doing single ply, multiply lifting, and he got so much crap for, I don't give a rip either way, but he got so much crap for, why are you doing this? The multiply sucks. Raw is the best way to go. And I know Raw is getting huge publicity right now, but what would you tell people about single ply, multiply lifting and why people should try it over Raw lifting?
Well, I think that you're going to extend your career. That's the original idea, the original purpose, why the equipment came out. The first piece of equipment to come out back in the late 80s was actually the squat suit. A company called Marathon made the very first squat suit. I think a year or two after that, the first bench press shirt came out. And every time you hear or see, now that we have full access to social media and the internet these days, whether you hear it or see it, when anybody rips a pec or blows out a shoulder in the bench, what are they normally doing?
Raw.
Yeah. Raw is cool. I give a lot of respect to anybody who's in the sport doing whatever they want. They have my respect as long as they're working hard. Raw is cool. I have no interest. I always use the analogy that I want to do this sport for decades, not just years.
Yeah.
Me being, especially still being a natural athlete, if I rip a pec, if I blow out my shoulder, doing something I don't even compete in, being stupid in the gym, I'm not going to recover from a blown out pec in a month. It's going to take, I'd say, probably upwards closer to probably a year.
Yeah.
And that's a year where I can't compete even equipped. So I don't do raw. I don't have no interest in it. And that also stems from the idea that I'm not doing this sport for anybody else.
Yeah.
I'm doing this sport for one person. That's me. So I'm going to lift how I want to lift for me. And I'm not going to do this sport to please others. If they want me to lift raw because of what? Because they want me to, because I want to, no, I'm not going to please others. I'm here for me. You don't like it, I'm not going to lose sleep over it. So lift raw if you want to. I mean, me lifting equipped is not going to stop somebody from competing raw.
Right. That's a really good point about longevity, and something that people really don't think about on the long term, particularly from powerlifting standpoint, because that whole culture is grind, do as much as you possibly can, and then eventually end up burned out. Like, and I love Dave Tate, but like that guy has so many injuries, it's ridiculous.
He does. Yep. and I know it comes from that raw stuff, man. Going full out to the walls raw all the time. You're just asking for it. I'm telling you.
Yeah. I want to ask you about squatting and deadlifting here in a second, but are the stuff that you're doing with the boards that I've seen in a few videos, when I first saw it, I was like, what the crap? But then I realized you're actually doing that for technique because you're specializing. So what's the 1 and 2 inch range of motion and coming down off of that? What is that doing from a practical standpoint for your bench?
So a lot of times when you see board work, it's, if you have a weak spot in the bench, if you get a bench up all the way to the top, you just cannot lock it out. You don't have the tricep strength. Or in case of a raw lifter, if you get stuck right off the chest, if you're going to miss a lift, it's right here.
Yeah.
What you do is stick an appropriate sized board on your chest, and you can actually train that weak spot in the bench. You can train that upper end. Or you stick like a one board in there and you can train that spot that you get stuck on. That's the original idea behind boards. What I use them for nowadays is two purposes. One, to overload. Any human being on the planet can lift more weight over a shorter distance. That's just, so it lets me handle loads that I cannot handle full range. That's adapting my bones, my connective tissue, my central nervous system to heavier loads. That way, when I'm going to compete, if I want to bench 1150 at my next meet or 1200, if I've handled 1200, 1250, 1300 pounds on a consistent basis, that load is not going to be a shock to me when I get to the competition. Gotcha. The other reason, boards are a fantastic way to build enormous strength in the triceps. And if there were two things I would tell an athlete to do to increase their bench, it would be tricep work and upper back work. Okay. Triceps are so, I don't think anybody has strong enough triceps, myself included. They can always be stronger. So that's basically what it is. It's a training tool. It's not like I got a PR bench today in the gym and I have a board in there. It's like, no, that's a training tool. I'm training a specific portion of the lift that maybe I'm weak at or I want to improve on.
Yep. I think a lot of people see that and they think, oh, it's just another stupid power lifter doing stupid things. But and granted, some people are doing that because they're more. I remember there's a guy in a Planet Fitness that I think was doing essentially, it wasn't a static hold. He was just trying to ego lift. Sure. But yeah, people need to understand that those ranges of motion are, from a technical and proficiency standpoint, actually helping you. And so so are you squatting and deadlifting during the week as well? Minimal amount, or are you concentrating almost 100% on the bench?
So for the last 3 years, up until 5 weeks ago, I was 100% just bench.
Oh, wow.
My basic schedule was 2 days for bench, 2 days for back. What was the other one? And then 2 shoulder days.
Okay.
But I don't do shoulder days like overhead. I don't do anything overhead. It's all just lateral raises and rear delt work.
Oh, interesting.
So that's actually, for a while it was 2 bench, 1 shoulder, and 3 back days a week. Once I brought my back strength up and I was satisfied, then I knocked it down. Like I need more shoulders. I'm weak in the shoulders. So now it's 2, 2, and 2. Now that was for 3 years. I did that.
Wow.
Concentrate only on bench, and I loved every minute of it. As of 5 weeks ago, I decided to say, maybe in an effort to put on some more weight, some healthy weight. I've got plenty of healthy and unhealthy weight. So maybe I've got room to grow in my lower body.
Mm-hmm.
I decided to start squatting and deadlifting again. So now I've still got 2 bench days a week, 2 lower body days, and then my 1 back day.
Okay.
So for the last 5 weeks, yes, I have been doing the other 2 lifts.
Okay. And I am very curious now, what are your numbers on squat and deadlift?
So I've got a raw squat of 700.
Good Lord.
Now I've gained, I'm heavier than I was before, so that might have something to do with it. So I've got a raw squat at 7. Deadlift is in the high 6s.
Mm-hmm.
After a beltless 500 good morning, I did a beltless 660 deadlift. Just to be honest with myself, like if I was in a full meet situation,
yeah,
you're going to be pretty exhausted going into the deadlift.
Yep.
So I did a pre-exhausted, it was a cambered bar, good mornings, up to 500 pounds before a 660 pull. So not astronomical. I'm not built for those lifts, particularly the deadlift. Here's the thing. If you're a perfectly born, you got the perfect mechanics for bench press.
Mm-hmm.
You have horrific mechanics for deadlift.
Oh.
And the same goes the other way. If you are a natural born deadlifter, you have short torso, long arms, you're a perfect deadlifter.
Mm-hmm.
You've got horrific mechanics for bench press.
Yeah.
I always reference whenever Andy Bolton, I'm a huge Andy Bolton fan from New England.
Mm-hmm.
New England. No, England. England.
UK,
that
yep.
one. He was squatting well over 1,200 pounds and deadlifting 1,000 in a full meet.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm using this I'm not saying only, like, I'm saying it lightly, but he would only bench in the 600s.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what I mean? Because he had horrible mechanics for it. He had super long arms and a short torso, and his mechanics were horrible for bench pressing. Yeah. Adversely, a lot of the biggest benchers of all time, myself included, just are not good at deadlift. I'm okay with that, though.
You're better than a lot of us, though, starting out of the gate. That's for damn sure. I've got really long arms, and so I love deadlifting. But you're right. I mean, when it transferring over to bench, I've been trying to watch folks like you to get better tips on that. But good Lord, I mean, the range of motion alone is murderous.
Yes. And people give me such hell in the past or even recently on certain social media platforms, some of which I don't use anymore. They're just like, you're huge, you're fat, you got these short arms. I'm like, I was born this way. Like, what do you want me to do? I'm going to utilize every mechanical advantage I can. If I've got short arms, like I don't know, pick better parents next time, I guess. Like, what do you want me to say? You know what I mean? Like, I was born built to bench. I've got short arms. I've spent a long time building up my midsection to decrease my stroke, but benching off my belly. I don't know, like, get over it, I guess.
Yeah, seriously.
What do you want me to?
Yeah, and anyway, the results speak for themselves. So
yeah.
And so with most of these powerlifting competitions, so they have so you can bench press specialize, and that'd be the only lift that you'd be doing in that competition then.
Yeah, it's called bench only. Very, very elaborate. Very elaborate title. I'm a bench only guy. The original idea behind there's also push pull where you can do just bench and deadlift, or you can deadlift only, which is deadlift only or bench only. That was the idea was for older athletes who can no longer squat. That seems to be the one lift that you poo-poo when you get really old, I guess. I'm not there yet, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But that allows older athletes to continue competing. But then obviously if anybody can do it. So if you want to specialize in just one lift, you can. Now, I don't, for the life of me, think there's a squat only division out there. I really don't think there is. You got bench only, deadlift only, and push pull. So I always like to mention that I don't firmly believe that I today am a true power lifter, because powerlifting is defined as the sport of the squat, bench, and deadlift.
Right.
I define myself as a specialist, as a bench press specialist.
Gotcha. Okay. Fair enough. You talked a little bit about your training career and starting at 14 and going from there. At what point did you realize, holy cow, I'm really good at this. I'm getting sponsored. This is now, and my other question is, at what point did this become a career, or are you still working stuff on the side?
So the first part of it, when did I think I was really good? When I was in middle school at the age of 14 or 15, when I was benching 300, 340, I think was my best at 15 years old. Back then, that was 2002, 2003, 2004. Okay. The first 800-pound bench press had just been done by Ryan Kennelly, I think in 2002.
Okay.
I could be wrong about that. I was like, whoa, Jesus, the living God in my and I made, at that moment, I made my life goal to bench 700 pounds, because back then 700 was still very unheard of. That was very rare. 800 pounds had just been done, and there was like maybe 7 guys over 700. I mean,
wow,
prestigious weight. So I said, my life goal before I die is to do 700. So when I did that weight at 19, just a handful of years later, I was like, oh, wow, that's incredible. So that's where I began to think I could probably take this somewhere. I didn't consider myself to be really good until I finally benched 800 pounds when I was 20 years old. At that point, I'm like, okay, now I think I'm getting up there good.
Yeah.
So that's where I decided, I could definitely be good at this, be world class. Picking up sponsors at 19 years old, Anderson Powerlifting. I was with Animal for a while, the supplement company. Then I got with MHP. I was with MHP, Maximum Human Performance, for 3 years. But Anderson's been there since the beginning, since 19, so the last almost 13 years.
Wow.
12 years.
Close enough.
Dropped out of college because of math. But career-wise, I was in the military for 4 years, and halfway through my enlistment, I decided I left the sport in 2015 for a couple of years. Then I joined the military, the Marine Corps. And then halfway through that enlistment, I started lifting again. So when I got out of the military a year ago, almost to the date, me and my wife started our own home business. Home screen printed goods like t-shirts, bags, and things like that.
Yeah.
And so now I am able to lift full time, literally as a career. I don't go to a job where I work 9 to 5 doing something I hate for somebody I probably hate. So I'm very fortunate at this point where I can lift full time on my own schedule right now.
Wow, that's amazing. What's the name of the company that you're screen printing with?
Called Melon Tops.
Okay, gotcha.
Our dog's name is Walter. He's actually the face of the company.
Oh, cool.
But his name is Walter. So as a joke, we call him Walter Melon, like watermelon. So that melon, and now we have him, and it's Melon Tops. It was actually my wife's idea, and we screen print.
Very nice. Very nice. Going back to the conversation we had with Joe, how did you guys get connected, or how did you even hear? I want to hear your side of the story. How did you get connected with Joe, and how did you hear about the gym in the first place?
Yeah. So I was lifting at a gym in Manassas. We're in Virginia. I was stationed at Quantico for my 3 years. So I was lifting at a gym in Manassas called The Shop.
Okay.
Started out good. Started to get really crappy. Not a good atmosphere, not good management. And if you have bad management with crappy people, that tends to just kind of trickle down all the way. And everybody's just kind of it's not a good atmosphere.
Yeah.
It got really sour really quick. And then me and my small group of friends that I was lifting with were like, man, we got to get out of here. But there's no other gym in the area. We have to go all the way to Tyson's Corner, which is a 45-hour drive north, to kind of get the same equipment that we all require. This is awful. What do we do? We're kind of stuck. And ironically, that exact same week, it's very ironic how that happened. We got word, I think through Instagram, that this new gym in the same town, Manassas, only 10 minutes down the road, was opening up, and it was called Unleashed Strength. We're like, whoa. So we went there on opening day. So I've been there since opening day on I think it was a Saturday or something.
Nice.
I had one of my buddies that I was stationed with. His name was Brown. Me and Brown drove to there on opening day. I mean, fresh paint and just, it just had that new smell, very minimal equipment, very spaced out. And I met Joe, and he was extraordinarily friendly. I met his wife, Margot. She was very, very friendly. Had a fantastic workout, and so did Brown. And I remember telling Joe, I said, hey, Joe, you've got a fantastic start here. This could really turn into something cool. He went out of town for that week, but the week he came back, I ended up getting a membership, and I've been there ever since.
Wow. I love it. And I've heard really good things about the culture that Joe's grown at Unleashed. What things have you seen that you've really liked coming out of that?
So he experienced the shop crap as well, because he was a member there before.
Okay.
And he branched out and wanted to make his own gym. So he got to experience what I experienced. Everybody's experience is different in life, but he came from the same environment that I came from that was toxic.
Yeah.
Very, very toxic gym. So he's very welcoming. Him and Margot are just amazing human beings, just so accepting and friendly. They've grown equipment as their membership has grown. We have a very small establishment with over 400 members. And so I've just seen, walls being taken down, equipment getting filled in, paint going up on the walls. The child kind of daycare little quiet room got torn down, and more equipment got put in. And just as more and more people come in, and Joe is very accepting of it. If you want an Olympic lift, if you want a power lift, if you want a CrossFit, if you just want to come in and walk on the treadmill and leave, it doesn't matter. You're part of the community. And as such, you get these little niches here and there, like myself and my crew.
Yep.
We have all of our own equipment, and Joe doesn't care what he doesn't want us putting holes in the walls and stuff like that. But, we can, it's a powerlifting gym. It's a powerlifting oriented gym. You get groups of Olympic lifters, groups of raw lifters, groups of equipped and raw. We do both. I don't just do equipped lifting, but it's just really cool to see it go from the fresh paint smelling day on day one with almost no equipment to what it's grown to now. He just celebrated his 2-year anniversary not too long ago. It's something you can really got to go in and see and experience. And Joe and Margot being that friendly with everybody is really the reason behind all of it.
Sure. I want to go back a little bit to your career and the sponsorships and everything with everybody that's gotten behind you over the years. I know for some, there's fitness influencers, and then there's fitness influencers, and there's good ones and there's terrible ones. How did you end up setting yourself apart to where you got that kind of attention? I'm always curious about that from a sponsorship perspective, because I think a lot of people don't know how to get that started to begin with. So did somebody just call you up one day and say, hey, I see you're breaking world records here. What can we make happen? Or
so the only time a sponsor has actually reached out to me was with Anderson Powerlifting. Now, I met Ken Anderson at the 09 Bench Nationals in Cleveland, Ohio, the USAPL type. Now, I hadn't learned my lesson yet with USAPL, so I was still competing with them, but that's a whole nother right now.
We should talk about that.
We will. Oh, if you want to, I'll get into it. But for the sake of this part of the story, I met Ken at the 09 Bench Nationals. He had a booth set up in the back of the ballroom in Cleveland here. And I had ordered my first katana. I actually bought it.
Oh,
it was
cool.
the only katana I ever paid for. I ordered it from him. And while I was at this Bench Nationals, I was 19 years old. I benched I have an IPF World Record. A lot of people don't know that.
Nice.
One of them, just one. I think it's frozen in time because they changed all their weight classes and stuff.
Yeah.
But I've got the certificate to prove it. But anyway, I benched an IPF World. I actually broke the junior world record as a 19-year-old. So that was pretty cool.
Holy cow.
Went back to talk to Ken, said, "Hey, Ken, I just I bought this shirt from you a couple of weeks ago." He goes, "Who are you?" I said, "Jimmy Kolb." And I said, "I just benched a world record." He goes, "Oh, here's a free t-shirt. Here's it. So we kind of made a connection there. But he reached out to me when I benched 700 pounds for the first time. So I benched 636 at the Bench Nationals for junior world record IPF. I think 3 months later, I benched 7, and he called me.
Okay.
And that's the only time that's ever happened. Now, with I've been with 3 different supplement companies. I'm not with a supplement company right now. I've not been with one for over a year. With those types, I've always had to engage and make the step to reach out.
Okay.
It's never been in my experience, and maybe it's just because I'm not in the right side of the sport, because I'm not raw, or because I'm just not I'm not huge on self promotion. I've always been. I like to lift weights, and that's kind of it. But my wife actually was the one who kind of pushed me towards this. But we've get on the computer and start typing up a letter. This is who I am. This is what I've done. This is what I plan to do. Here's what I can do for you.
Cool. And
send that out and start the process of emailing back and forth. And that turns into a call, and that turns into here's look over this contract and what do you think? And then it's like a month and a half process.
Okay.
I always tell people, don't wait for somebody to contact you. Reach out. If you feel like you've got what it takes and you're breaking record, that's, they don't want to just pick up anybody. I mean, I would argue you probably want to be a world record holder at that point. But I think in most cases you need to be the one as the athlete to start the process.
Sure.
In my experience.
I've heard both sides of that, because unless you're I don't even like mention Charlie D'Amelio on TikTok and you've blown up overnight, nobody's calling you. That's not the norm, but people see that and they go, well, I just have to get big enough. And I'm sure that's true in some cases, but I think in most instances, the practical approach of getting these sponsors on board with you, and you can sell world records. Other people can sell their audience. There's different ways to do that, I'm sure.
Absolutely. I mean, back, like I said, I grew up in the infancy of like when I remember when YouTube first came out, and the way things are now, it's completely different. Social media, which is such a crappy reality, but social media is so big and huge these days, and people get paid for that stuff. I mean, that's wild to me. Maybe I'm just old spirited, but there's lots of different ways to do it these days. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. USAPL. What's the skinny?
Well, it's a fatty at this point. Oh boy. So, yuck. So I'm from Ohio, and I was very, very spoiled that there was a meet every single weekend because there's just so many federations up there.
Yeah.
So I was a member of 8 different feds when I was 18, 19, 20 years old, because I was just like, well, it's only an hour drive from my house, so it's a different Fed. Well, I don't care. I'll pay the membership fee. There I can compete. That's what I competed all the time, and I was a member of like 8 different Feds. But I had a friend at this gym. My original powerlifting gym was called Blackstone's Gym in West Lafayette, Ohio. Mm-hmm. Corn Crib, West Lafayette. Very, very corny part of the state. But anyway, so I had a friend who was an IPF bench press legend. His name was Ralph Young. Mm-hmm. Huge name in the sport. He's old and beaten up. He's torn both biceps, both pecs. He's all stitched together with Kevlar, but he's still competing raw, which is weird to me. I feel like you should compete with equipment if you're that hurt, but
yeah,
awesome guy, awesome lifter. So he said, hey man, there's the bench. This is in 2009. The bench nationals is coming around again, and it's going to be in Cleveland, which is only an hour from where we live. I'm like, whoa, that's a big deal, I think, right? He goes, oh, that's a big deal. So I had just graduated high school. I graduated in 2009. Mm-hmm. And he said, well, you have to qualify. So I had to find a USAPL meet somewhere within a reasonable driving distance. So we went to, I think it was called Streetsboro or something in Ohio. It's like a 2-hour drive. Okay. So I had to do this USAPL meet and just get a qualifying bench to then qualify for the bench nationals.
Okay.
So I've only done 2 USAPL meets in my entire 13 years of competing. That's all it took, just to kind of give you a preemptive how crappy this story is. But so I went to Streetsboro and got my qualifying bench. And I just got this silent animosity of the USAPL. Like, first meet with them, I was just like, I'm not having a good time here. Like, there's no music. It's like you find more excitement in a funeral home.
Huh.
No music, nobody's cheering, dead quiet. I'm just like, and the judges were, a-holes and not friendly. I did not feel like I was in a friendly environment. This is my first experience with them. And I thought, oh, it's a small local meet, maybe it'll be different. So then a couple months later, we go to the 2009 Bench Nationals in Cleveland, which is in my backyard at some grand ballroom hotel. And I got 3 for 3 on the bench. I went 584, 623, and 636 for my IPF world record as a teenager, breaking the junior world record. Again, experiencing the same a-holeness, just competitors and referees and judges all alike. Everybody was just very, very nasty and mean and whatever. What happened? This is so right after I benched my IPF world record, I sit up off the bench, and I celebrate, and I go to the right, and immediately I get a hand on my arm like this. It's some chick. It's one of the referees, and she pulls me to the side. And she goes, okay, Mr. Kolb, it's time for your drug test. I'm like, oh, hey, this is great. Let's do this. I've done this a lot. I'm all about the drug test. And she goes, yes, sir. Well, it's going to cost you $140. We accept check, credit card, or cash. I'm like, whoa, what? Say what now? $140? What? So I come to the realization at this USAPL Bench Nationals, and they deny this up and down. They'll never admit that. I've got kicked off in so many forums and sites with them because I bring this up. But if you broke a state record, you would get drug tested.
Yeah.
Fine. You broke a national record, you get drug tested. Fine.
Yeah.
If you broke a world record at this meet, you not only got drug tested, you had to pay for it, $140 up front, which is complete ass. So
yeah.
I go out into the audience, it's in a ballroom. So we're up on the stage. I just go down the little stairs. I'm in the front crowd with my family. I'm like, hey guys, I have to come up with $140 or I can't keep that record. Because before I left the stage, she said, well, sir, you don't have to pay the $140, but you can't keep your record. And young me is just like, so I have to pay for my record. She goes, no, you have to pay for your drug test. I'm like, mm-mm. So I'm in the crowd. I'm trying to literally just mooch $140. Here's 20, here's 10. I think I got some 20s in my purse, And meanwhile, the vice president, who I'm pretty sure he's still the vice president of the Fed, is up on the stage looking for me. And he sees me and he goes, he's like motioning me to come back up there. And I'm like, I walk up to him, I'm like, what? he goes, "You can't go anywhere without an escort, Mr. Kolb." I'm like, "What?"
Oh my gosh.
They were I was going to do a piss transfusion, like literally right out in front of the crowd. I was not allowed to leave the stage without somebody in a uniform following me around.
Oh my god.
I had to be escorted if I had to anywhere. If I wanted to go get a drink, if I wanted to sit down in the crowd, I had to have an escort. I'm like, okay. I finally get the money. I go do the piss test. I got the old man right here watching me, which is nightmares. And then paid for it. That was the last time I ever competed with them. And John Bogart was there. He's a IPF bench presser as well.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing. He can confirm my story that, because he broke a world record that day, had to pay $140. If an athlete is not drug-free and is trying to hide it, mm-hmm. and is competing in a drug-free meet or a drug-tested fed, and they get caught via a drug test, they have to pay for it. That's how it works.
Mm-hmm.
Only once in my life have I had to pay in order to take the test to keep a world record. So that's the only record I've ever had to pay for.
That's BS.
It's a total BS. So that's my experience with the IPF. And ever since then, I said, speak to the hand of that crap. So, and like I said, I once in a while I'll get an itch and I'll message them or I'll comment something. I'm like, I'm poking the bear. I'm doing it all. Like, oh, that's cool. Are you going to charge us to take the drug test this year? Or are you going to like, we don't do that, Mr. Kolb. We've never done. I said, BS. Back in 2009, I tell them my short story. Like, oh, well, that was before my time. That's not how we do things. I'm like, oh,
come on.
You just won't say it, will you? You just won't say it. But I'm going to say it till the day I die, or they pay me my $140 to shut up or something.
Yeah, seriously.
So that's my experience. Everybody else is different. Just like we used to say in the military that everybody's experience is different. Don't base your judgment off of other people's stories. But that's me. That's what happened to me.
Well, I mean, that's you and also the other guy that was there too. So,
and there were probably a lot of world records that's the only guy that I can remember and who confirmed my story on one of my posts a long time ago. So, John Bogart. Yeah, he was there.
Yeah.
I'm sure there were more than just me and him breaking world records that day, but it happened. So that's a true story.
Unreal. So I'm assuming, so are you USPA now, or basically any other division other than USAPL?
USPA is on the same playing field in feds that I won't compete with.
Oh, really?
Oh, I've had horrible, probably just as bad, but not the same circumstances.
Okay.
There's only 5. I think I've got 5 federations I won't compete with, and USPA is one of them.
Really?
In addition to USAPL.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do they the way they treat their athletes, or is it similar? And
the way I've gotten treated.
Okay.
In addition to same as USA, the type of equipment they use.
Yeah.
Particularly their benches, those ER combo rack pieces of garbage that are just, if you bench more than 300 pounds, they're basically worthless, you know? So me trying to show up to a meet and open it over 900 Singleply, and I'm on a crappy ER, rickety, paper thin, narrow bench, and I'm not even allowed to have a 3-man handoff. And then the meet breaks their own rules and said, oh, it's a lot of weight. You can use your own spotters. I'm like, yeah, you think? And
no kidding.
There's a lot. I could go on and on and on. But yeah, wow. USPA and USAPL are on the same field of, I'll never compete with you ever again.
Wow.
And I'll bash you into the ground to the day I die because I'm petty.
Well, you've got good reason to be. So I don't judge you for that. So I'm a fitness equipment nerd. So you're talking about rickety equipment and that kind of thing. So what's your opinion on true bench press setups without those spotter? You know what I'm talking about? Like the ones that just have the rack in the back. Like what's going on with that? Because if you're benching over 900 and that falls, you're dying.
Yeah, and I've had some close calls. Like I mentioned earlier, when you're lifting an equipment, you're not going to tear a pec, you're not going to blow out a shoulder, you're not going to destroy your body. You're going to extend your career and enjoy the heavier weights. But with the heavier weight and the nature of the equipment we use, you have the other risks, such as dumping the weights. Yeah. I've dumped 1,004 over my head, 900 pounds over my head. I've dumped 850 into my belly before. And ironically, each time the 1,004 was actually at one of those USPA meets where they do have the little rickety spotter arms that come up and down.
Yep.
But they weren't using them. They weren't adjusting them. And on my last attempt, which was 1,004, my wife says, "Those are really low. Do you want me to move those up?" I'm like, "Yeah, put them up like 3 notches. That should be fine." And I dumped that weight over my head, and it caught the bar about that far from my face. So had that not happened, I would have had 1,004 on my forehead. So very awesome circumstances. Thank you, Katie. But yeah, I think it's irresponsible for a meet director. I think it should be a requirement across the board that the competitive bench at meets, it should be a requirement that they have spotter arms.
Yeah,
it should be. A lot of feds don't do it. I think it's irresponsible, one, for the meet director to not give a crap about the safety of the lifter. Like, I don't care how many spotters you have. When you get up to these kind of weights, like 8, 9,000 plus, if a bar goes, I don't care if you have 10 guys up there, they are not going to catch that weight.
No,
it's just not going to happen. If you have spotter arms, it could be a different, at least the spotter arms are going to keep you from the bar being on your body.
Yes.
That's the point. Body saver, face saver, it's the same thing.
Yep.
I think I'm the kind of athlete, I've been this way for the last couple of years. I call the meet director ahead of time, about a week or two. No, I'm not going to say it, about a month out.
Yeah.
I have to register. I don't want the meet to be sold out. So I call the meet director and say, "Hey, I'm Jimmy Kolb. I'm considering your meet down the road. It's not too far from my house. I have to ask this question: what kind of equipment are you using?" And sometimes it's good news. Oh, we're using a Dynabody bench. We got face savers. I'm like, I'm sold. Good. Sometimes they say, "Oh, hey, we're using a ER bench." I'm like, "Ew, never mind. Have a good day." Or, "Hey, we're using a Forza." That's all they say. I'm like, "Do you have face savers on it?" They'll go, "No, but we got really good spotters." But, okay, you know what? No, I'm not going to. No. It's actually a rule that I have and my wife has, that I am not allowed to compete unless there's face savers on the bench. That should not even be a question these days. That's totally irresponsible.
Yeah, I don't understand that, but whether it's in a commercial setting or a competitive setting, I think it's really irresponsible in a commercial setting. I got so much heat for that. I posted a video about that, and I got so much heat for it. I don't know why, but it's a bunch of guys who were, their opinion on it was, if you can't lift the weight, just don't be lifting in the first place. But that's not the point.
No. Safety should not even be a question.
Yeah.
Now, even if you're lifting a weight that you can competently handle all the time, alone in a basement, doesn't matter. You can handle it. Things can still happen.
Yeah.
I had a gentleman at my gym who was benching. He was in one of our benches that has the arms. Sometimes, and I still see this today, I don't know why they do that. They take the arms completely out of the way. They don't lower them down out of their way, or they take them completely off the bench and set them on the floor. I don't know why, but he did this. He took them completely off. They were sitting on the floor. He had a spotter when this happened, but he was only using two plates and a 10. The bar weight was 245.
Yeah. And
he tore his pec with 245. Just because you're only benching in the 200s doesn't mean you can't rip your pec, whether it be maybe some pre-existing injury you don't know you have, or piss poor form, whatever it is. You don't have to be a 500-pound raw bencher for you to rip your pec.
Yeah.
I was there. I saw it happen with 245. All I heard was a crash, and I look, and he's up off the bench at this point, completely white as a ghost. The bar is sitting on the pad because the spotter arms are completely absent.
Oh no. I
was like, uh-oh. I ran and grabbed a trash can, set it in front of him, and he threw up everything. His body was in shock. And I said, you ripped your, gonna be fine though. It's still attached. You got a belly tear, yada, yada, yada. But he was fine after it all said and done. But commercial setting, regardless, take your safety into consideration, especially if you want to do this sport for a long time, you have to be safe. And powerlifting is a very dangerous, or can be a very dangerous sport. I think statistically speaking, it's one of the safest sports out there.
Yeah.
But when it's taken to the extreme, like any sport, it can be dangerous.
Yeah. It's no joke, just like anything else. I know you're not doing squatting as often, but my question has always been, in most powerlifting meets, or in the ones that I've seen at least, they have these tiny little squat stands with hooks that are only probably about that far to catch the bar when you're coming back in. Why are they not squatting in a power rack is built for that, with rods that you can adjust pretty easily. I understand. So I understand there may be some folks who say, if you go too far down, you're going to bang it and then you miss your lift. I get it. But you can adjust for that based on height.
You can. No, when I go to these meets, even when I was doing full power, I squatted out of the monoliths, and they have the chains or the
yes,
we got chains wrapped around the bar.
Those are great. Yeah.
I would not only, same on the bench with the face savers, I give the judge's table two things. I give them my rack height for the bar, but I also give them the height of my face savers.
Yeah.
Like, hey, rack at 2 holes showing, face savers all the way up as high as I can go, because that's that particular bench. Or when I was doing the squats with the monolift, I'm like, hey, okay, my height is 20. I want the chains, at link, hooked on link, 10 or something. That way, if I bottom out in the squat and dump it, it's only going to fall that far.
Right.
You have to take the initiative. Yeah. I think the power rack, I think the reason you're right. You could say, hey, I want the safety arms to be down here or up here or whatever.
Yeah.
Just provide that information. But I think the idea behind the power rack not being part of the sport competitively is for the side judges. Point. That's my only idea floating around in my head, is that the power rack may cause obstruction.
Yep.
For the judges to do their job. Now I know down in Texas, where it's a school sanctioned sport, which is amazing, they squat in power cages.
Oh, okay.
But I don't think those are federation meets. They're just high school meets.
Yeah.
But you get into any federation, it's always going to be either in a monolith or a pair of squat stands with nothing else around it, because of the obstruction that it might cause for the judges. That's what I think anyway.
Gotcha. Yeah. And people, to your point about spotters, again, people don't understand how heavy, especially when you're going for world records, some of this stuff is. The spotters in these events, at least in my opinion, are about as good as the ones that you're going to get in a commercial gym setting. I mean, I know several of them have probably volunteered in multiple meets, but there are guys that they might be on one side of the bench or one side of the squat rack, and the other guy this is his first time. They're not catching it. Sorry.
Nope.
I've
learned this lesson the hard way. And these days, again, part of my process of competing is not only picking a meet, making sure I don't like traveling hours and hours to get to a competition.
Yeah.
2 to 3 hours is fine, but anything more than that, I'm like, ugh. But so picking the meet, calling the judge, if I already know who it is and I know what kind of equipment they use, like Amy Rich, like with the RPS Federation, if it's one of her meets, I know she's bringing her equipment. I'm already sold, because she has the best benches out there. But calling the meet director, what kind of equipment to use, what kind of okay, cool. The other part of that is making sure that my crew can be there for handoff purposes and for spotting purposes, because my crew hands off 1,000, 1,100, 1,200, 1,300 pounds every single weekend.
Yeah.
And is very, very competent and experienced with the kind of weights that I'm doing and will be doing on the platform. So if it's like too far away or not enough people can be there because of varying circumstances, because we all have lives, oftentimes they'll actually come because they want to compete too. Like, oh, it's an opportunity to compete. That's fine. We'll all go. Yeah, we'll all do it. But if they can't make it, I can't rely on strangers that I've never met before to handle that kind of weight.
No.
Oftentimes I'll have friends that I've lifted with in the past who are in the area, live in the area. It's only half hour from their house. Hey, can you be there? Yeah, we got you. You know, I'm always in a situation where I know I'm safe and taken care of because I got competent people spotting me.
Yeah.
Not everybody can pull that off. If you're a loner, if you go to a commercial gym and lift on your own, or you go to competition, you have to rely on those that are already there. Like this one USPA meet that I went to in Cleveland, Ohio. Every single spotter was a U.S. National Guard reservist that were stationed there in the area, and they all like volunteered. So this competition had 10 platforms going all at once. I've never seen such a chaotic circus of an event. They had 10 platforms all going at once. There was like 700 competitors at this meet.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, too big. That's
yeah, no,
way too much. I've seen 3, I've seen 2. 90% of the time it's 1. Yeah. This meet had 10 platforms. And every single spotter there was a volunteer from the U.S. National Guard. Not knocking our service members,
sure,
but just because you're in the Army doesn't mean you know how to spot. You know, like a lot of weight thing. But you know, it's whatever. So you got to pick your poison. Lift on your own and rely on the meat spotters, or find a crew, which I think is a requirement to be the best in the world. That's just an opinion.
Yeah.
And make sure they can be there with you.
Yeah.
So
listen to Jimmy, guys. He knows what he's talking about. Believe me.
Not everything, but things.
Well, Jimmy, I appreciate you coming on, man. This has been awesome. Where can people find you if they want to look at your lifts or get some advice, or I don't know. Do you coach, by the way?
I do. I coach in person, which is my most preferred way to do it, because I'm not a big internet guy.
Yeah.
I hate technology. I like in person. I like calling. I like speaking to people in person. I hate texting. It's whatever. But yeah, I coach in person. I do make online like custom bench programs for people.
Cool.
The best way to get in contact with me is actually through Instagram. Okay. My handle is Kolb Strong. So that's KOLB Strong. They can find me on there. I'm on Facebook, not very often. But yeah, I do coaching. I do bench programs. Or if you just want to contact me to get some advice and talk, this is what I do full time now. This is my occupation. I'll always get back to you. If you're in the Virginia area, come lift with me. We're in Manassas, which is Nova, Northern Virginia. It's called Nova. Like
I love that.
Yeah, it's just like it's. And I saw a map in one of the gas stations. It was a map of Southern Nova. A map of Southern North Virginia. So, this is Virginia. But anyway, so yeah, that's the best way to get a hold of me is on Instagram with Kolb Strong. And I wanted to talk really quick. I'll just mention it.
Yeah.
About our scholarship that we're running. It's the Kolb Strong Scholarship. It's for young powerlifters. We're doing ages 13 to 23. So all the teenage divisions and the junior division. Starting January 1st of this coming year, we're going to be taking applications, and you can get all this information from my Instagram or the Kolb Strong Scholarship Instagram as well, where we will grant $1,000 to people who need it. It's a scholarship for young powerlifters. We're taking money. It's money by donation. It's a nonprofit organization. We're collecting money until the end of December, depending on how many thousands we raise. Will depend on how many athletes we help. If we have $2,000, there's 2 athletes. We have $3,000, there's 3 athletes. And we look at these stories of those who are in need. We look through it, see who is in most need. of gym, who can't afford gym memberships, who can't afford new equipment, who can't afford to travel and compete. And we grant them these $1,000 to help their powerlifting career. So I just want to put that out there in the universe. We're still doing that. If you're interested, contact me or go visit the Instagram page, Kolb Strong Scholarship.
Fantastic. One last thing before you go, if you had to give, I'm gonna ask this not from the beginner perspective, but for an intermediate or advanced bench presser. If you had to give one piece of advice to those guys, what do you think they're missing most often?
If all the basics are in play, you've got a crew, you've got a plan, you've got you've got a good gym with good equipment, all those basic things are taken care of. Mm-hmm. The one thing that I made the mistake of doing when I was younger, even up until I was in the 700 to 800 pound bench range, still pretty, that's considered elite when you get to that level.
Yeah.
I used to look at how I was training, and, nobody else trains that way. Like, nobody else in the world trains the way I train specifically. How I mentioned that every human being is different. Mm-hmm. But I used to look at the guys that I emulated, like Ryan Kennelly, like Gene Richlack, Scott Bendelson, Tiny Meeker. And because they were more successful than me, and they don't train the way I do, I used to think the way I was doing things was wrong. And I was like, well, Ryan Kennelly doesn't do this. It can't be right. I used to try to structure how I did things like they did things. But what's going to work for them or what's going to work for me might not work for you. So if you're doing something and it's completely unique and nobody else in the world trains that way, but you are getting benefit from it, continue to do that thing, because you are a completely 100% unique individual and no other human being will ever live that's anything like you. Right. So just do things the way you need to do them for you personally. Don't try to do things to match somebody else. Don't do things to please others. Like, do this sport for the person that matters most in your life. And that's yourself. Yep. That's how I would say it.
Awesome advice. Thank you, Jimmy. Appreciate the time, man. Go follow this guy on social and keep up with him for really good. Reach out to him if you need bench press tips. But thanks so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate the time.
I appreciate your time having me on here. This is fun. I appreciate everything you did, and I hope you have a good rest of your day and your week.
Thank you. You too. All right. Take care.
Cool. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. Please give FreedomCast a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. It would mean a lot to our business. Plus, it's fun to read y'all's reviews. See you next time.